Hello and welcome everyone to Workday 101 for managers. This is the lunch and learn on the 2021 SSM Pay for Performance annual increases. I am Candy Wilkinson, the HR Technology Change Manager, and I've got Amy Hayfully Cox with me. She's the compensation analyst who will be our expert for the discussion. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
So Amy, could you kind of walk us through this timeline as it relates to the annual increase process?
Absolutely. So the
Thanks.
first date on there is February 1st, which was our cutoff date for newly hired employees.
Mhm.
So employees hired prior to February 1st are eligible for an increase this year, and employees hired on February 1st of 2021 or later will be eligible for an increase next year. On April 7th, the process will open and managers will receive a Workday inbox task to complete employee increases.
Okay.
The process will remain open from April 7th to April 28th.
Okay.
We ask that everybody keeps in mind that the process does need to go all the way up through the management organization before finalizing, and upper levels of management cannot submit until their subordinates have submitted. So please don't wait till the end of the window to do your review.
Mhm.
And we encourage you to have them all completed by April 26th to allow time for the final approvals by the 28th.
Yeah, so you're saying that just because the manager completes their approval, it might have one or more layers of additional approval. So if we can get everything done by April 26th, that'll give us that 2-day window where additional approvals can take place, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. Okay.
So then on April 28th, the process will close and we will finalize all recommendations. And then between April 29th and May 6th, the compensation team will use that time to review the recommendations, validate the data, and resolve any errors that we have found.
Okay.
Then on May 7th, the increased data will flow to payroll. And on May 9th, that is the effective date for the increases.
Okay.
On May 10th, managers will receive another Workday inbox task to print personalized employee statements. And those are to facilitate conversations between the leader and the employee regarding their increase. And those conversations should happen between May 10th through May 26th.
Okay.
And then on May 28th, employees will see the increase reflected on their paycheck.
Yay. All right, super. All right, so let's talk about which employees are eligible for the increase.
So employees who are in a regular employee type below the VP level are eligible for an increase.
Okay.
Employees with an additional or secondary job that is classified as a regular employee type are also eligible. And presidents and vice presidents are eligible for the pay for performance, excluding the system chief officers, regional presidents, president DHP, and president of Navitas.
Okay, now what about employees that are not eligible?
So any employee who is in a PRN employee type is not eligible, whether in their primary or their secondary job. Interns, temporaries, residents, and students are not eligible. Our production-based employees are not eligible. Contingent workers are not eligible. Our employees represented by our 2 unions are not eligible for this increase, and any employee on final written warning as of May 9th is not eligible for an increase until next year's annual cycle.
Okay, great. All right, and what about the freeze period and the status changes? How does that work?
So the quiet period is from May 9th to May 22nd, and that's basically the pay period in which these changes are effective.
Okay.
And that is to allow us to minimize any system issues that can result from processing changes at the same time as the annual increases in the same pay period.
Okay, that makes sense.
And some of those challenges are like overriding the increase or reverting to a previous pay amount. And so we would like to eliminate the likelihood of those. So that's why we're imposing the quiet period. And it also will help alleviate any issues with an outstanding pending process in Workday, preventing these increases from loading properly. So that is, and then anybody who's received a promotion or a transfer up till now, or actually up until May 8th, will still continue to be eligible for an annual increase, and they will be included in the process.
Okay, good. And then what about employees on a LOA status?
Those employees, we will go ahead and process their increase and load that into Workday, but they won't actually see that increase until they return to work and start receiving pay again.
Gotcha. Okay, good. So now when we go into the annual increase process, there's this really cool tool, the budget and spend graph. Can you help us understand how this works?
Sure. So this graph represents the available budget that you have. So it's the 2.5% budget. The black number there at the bottom is the total available budget. The green number and the circle, those will change as you make changes or in the recommendations for each employee. So as you make changes, those will update. And if you go over your budget, both the circle and the green number there will change to red.
Oh, good. So maybe you could give us a demo of how to review our direct reports, and if we're like a second level manager, how to review our indirect reports, how to do that batch printing, show us the budget and spend graph, all of that jazz. Can you share your screen with us? Okay, great.
Okay.
All right, we can see your screen, and just want to mention that due to the sensitive nature of the content of our Lunch and Learn today, we did record a video, and we masked all of the information about employee names and IDs and things like that. So the video is going to look a little different, and Amy's going to start and stop the video. So we had to do this one a little bit differently, but I think all of the content will still come across really well. So Amy, when you're ready, you can go ahead and begin.
Okay, thank you. All right, so reviewing direct reports, you will get a Workday inbox task in your inbox, and it will look like this: the Compensation Review 2021 SSM Pay for Performance Annual Increase. And you'll need to go to your inbox and find that.
Okay.
And then click on that, and then when you do, it'll look like this. And spend a little bit of time reviewing the help text. It has some good reminders here of a reminder again that the annual increase process will not be complete until all approvals have been made or the process has been finalized, which will happen on the compensation end. We will finalize it. We do have a merit matrix that's been added as part of the annual increase process. The actual matrix is available in the job aid, which I will show you in just a minute. The matrix utilizes the employee's performance rating to determine the merit-based increases, and those have been pre-filled into the employee data. We use that merit matrix to pre-fill those. Leaders do have limited ability to make adjustments to the increases based on the parameters around the merit matrix. And to help with that, the system is programmed to produce errors if there is a problem, and we will demonstrate some of those as well. For employees who are at or near the maximum of the pay range, we do have some additional information. Employees at the maximum of the pay range will receive a full lump sum payment rather than an increase to their base. Employees who are near the maximum of the range may receive a combination of both an increase in their base rate to the maximum of the range and then the remainder by a lump sum payment. And employees who are over the maximum of the range, they will receive a lump sum payment, but that will be calculated on the range maximum, not on their current base salary.
Okay.
So again, with the total budget is 2.5%, and that is reflected in the budget and spend graph. The job aid is available here. So when you click this button, it will take you to the job aid, which looks like this. And it is a detailed step-by-step instructions that will walk you through every step of how to do the entire process.
Great.
Okay. So now we'll look down at the budget and spend graph again. So again, you do have limited ability to decide what amount or percent of increase to give to each employee. There are limitations based on the percentages outlined in the merit matrix, and you can't go over your total budget as indicated by that black number there. Now, the pool will be updated if an employee terminates during the process, and it will remove their funds from the overall pool. And if an employee transfers, it should transfer their funds as well.
Okay,
So, and then the green percent and the green number will change as you make adjustments. And then if you go over, those will change to red. Okay, this process preferences button doesn't do anything, and it can, you can just
ignore it.
skip that.
Okay.
Okay, so down here to the employee data, this is what it will look like viewing your data for your direct reports. So the employee name, ID, and position number are represented in that first column that we have blocked out. And employees who do have additional jobs, they will show in the supervisory organization for the manager of their primary job, not of the manager of their additional jobs. So they will, all of their jobs will show under one manager for their primary job, and those will be indicated by a plus sign in parentheses. And a little bit of slight difference for additional jobs is if they are near the maximum of their range for their additional job, they will receive a partial increase to the range maximum, but they will not receive the remainder in a lump sum. And if they are over the maximum, they will not receive a lump sum. The additional jobs are capped at the maximum of the range.
Gotcha. Good to know. Thanks.
So that second column there is the error column, and a red alert will appear if there is an error. The PA rating column reflects the performance appraisal rating that was loaded into the process. And if no appraisal was completed or uploaded to Workday, we have defaulted that to meets expectations. Current total base pay reflects their current base pay. The default percent is pre-populated based on their performance rating and the merit matrix. So, and a rating of meets expectations has been pre-populated at 2.5%. And if there was no performance rating, those have also been defaulted to 2.5%.
So if the PA rating exceeds or below, is that reflected in the default percent?
Yes.
Okay.
So the below, we have a below there that's defaulted at 0.5%, and the exceeds is defaulted at 2.875%.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay, so you can make changes in both the increased percent and the increase amount field. So you could change it either way, by percentage or by dollars. Those are both calculated fields. The increased percent is calculated as a calculated field based on the default percent. And if the current base pay is over the maximum of the grade, then it will that will be 0, and the increase will appear in the lump sum percent field instead. And for employees close to the maximum of the range, you may see both an increased percent and a lump sum amount. The increase amount is a calculated dollar amount based on the percent found in the default percent column.
So let me just reiterate what I think I just heard you say. So if the employee is at their, or like if their increase amount brings them up to the max, then they're going to get a lump sum as well?
If it brings them over the max, yes.
Over the max, that lump sum will appear. Okay, good.
Yes.
Thanks.
Also to note, as you work through each of these, the line that you're on is highlighted in blue. So we can see that the increased percent and the increased amount, those have white boxes that we could edit in, and that line is blue. And that will also match the blue box on the right that has the hire date, the current range information, the minimum, midpoint, and maximum. We're going to scroll a little bit to the right. So the new pay amount is a calculated field that adds the current pay and the increase amount. The current position in range and the new position in range are both reflections of where the current rate or the new rate stand in relation to the midpoint of the range. And the lump sum percent is by default 0 unless the employee is at or over the maximum of the range. And then that will be populated, and the same with the lump sum amount.
Okay.
And again, if they are over the maximum of the grade, the lump sum amount will be calculated based on the maximum of the range.
Okay.
There are additional fields to the right, the compensation event 0 increases field. So if you choose to give somebody a 0 increase, that will create an error, which will need to be cleared by changing the compensation event 0 from no to yes and adding a comment in the notes column. And if there are other concerns that need to be addressed by the compensation team, they can also leave comments in the notes box, and then the compensation team will be reviewing those. And again, the blue box on the right reflects the hire date and range information for whichever employee you have highlighted.
Okay, that makes sense. And you're going to demo some of that, like the errors and things, here in a minute?
Yes, I am right
okay,
now.
Good. Oh, super, thanks.
Okay, so first we're going to try and change an increase amount. So I'm going to go to this employee and we're going to change the amount of the increase. Now this particular employee is getting both a lump sum and a increase. So any additional increase to base would put them over the maximum of the range. So you can see we have an error flagged in the errors column. And to review what that error is, you can click on the number underneath of that. So we're going to click on the 1, and that will display our error message. So it tells us that the new base pay is greater than the maximum of the range for this position. So we need to change that back. So we're just going to change that back, clear the error, and change that back to what it was. All right. Now we're going to try increasing the percent for an employee. Change that to 4. Now we have another error. And this error is related to the increase percent that we changed it to is over the merit matrix allowed percentage. So we can X out of that error and we can clear that error as well.
So if you see an error, then, I mean, just read it, right? And it'll tell you how to fix it?
Yes, and you can't submit it if there are any errors.
Ah, good, okay.
So they do all have to be cleared before you can submit it.
Okay.
So we'll change that back. Now we're going to try a 0 increase. And as I mentioned, that will throw an error that we'll need to scroll to the right to review. And since I knew that already, I didn't click on that to look at the error. So we'll change that to yes, and then we'll add a comment in our notes field. So just changing it to yes did not clear the error. It's still there, but after we complete our comment, then it is cleared. All right, now we're going to switch down to this employee at the bottom. And if we look, we can see the current base pay, and compared to the blue box on the right, the current base pay is over the maximum for the range. And we notice that there is a 0 amount in the increase percent and the increase amount. So this employee is over the maximum and is getting all of their increase in a lump sum payment. So when we scroll to the right, we will see that it is pre-populated there in the lump sum field. And it appears less than 2.5% because it's calculated on the maximum of the range, not the employee's current salary. When you have finished working through each line of employee data and you're ready to submit for your direct reports, you would come down and click the Submit button. And then you can leave a comment if you would like And once you submit it again, that you will be finished and you're no longer able to edit any proposals. So then click submit and done, and then you're done. And then we can move on to reviewing indirect reports. You'll also receive a task in your inbox, and it will look the same with the SSM 2021 SSM pay for performance annual increase. And same help text, same budget and spend graph, different figures, of course, and then a slightly different view when you get down here, scroll down here. So this second level or above manager will have subordinate organizations reflected underneath them. And to view those, you would click on the icon in the subordinate organizations field. Not sure if it's a miniature org chart, or I like to call it binoculars.
I think it is a mini org chart.
So
there it is.
There.
Yep.
All right, so we can see that we have one that has been submitted and the others are still awaiting action. And the second level or above manager cannot submit theirs until everybody below them is in the submitted status. You can review what has been submitted by your subordinate managers by clicking on the pencil, and then the indirects will appear. And you can make adjustments as needed if you want to at the second level. So in this case, we're going to change that 0 increase back.
So you're saying that the manager over employee number 3, they gave them 0, but the second level manager still has some additional dollars in their pool or whatever, and so they are going to add back the percent. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And they probably would have discussed that with the first level manager and said, hey, we still have money available, let's change that. And then they'll also change this back to, because that's no longer needed. When they're finished reviewing their indirect reports, they click continue to return to the previous screen. And scroll down again. So we also have this actions button on the right over here, which has 2 options: to view all employees or search employees. And the view all employees will take you in the same way as the pencil. So it's just another way to do that. And the search employees is a way to search, but probably not really necessary. So probably can ignore this mostly too. Here's an example of how it just shows you the exact same thing as the pencil icon. So once you've reviewed all of your indirect employees that have been submitted, and then you can review your direct employees.
So a second level manager has to review all of their first level managers and their employees before they can do their own. Is that right?
They don't have to review them, but they do all have to be submitted.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
They can review them. Yes, and their first level employees will all be listed on the top line here for this, where we are now.
Got it. Thanks.
So they can make adjustments to their direct reports as well. And we are going to try rounding a salary amount to a flat dollar amount. But we get another error because we are slightly over the amount allowed by the merit matrix. So we'll just put that back. And as we're making all of these changes, the budget and spend graph is updating every time. The screen is too large to see that right now. Okay, so when you are satisfied with the increases and ready to submit, and all of your directs and indirects have been submitted, actually, I think the video is first going to look at this other subordinate organization. In this case, all of these report up to the same manager, so they appear to not be submitted, but the second level manager will be submitting all of them at the same time in this particular case. So when you're ready to do that, you click this return to the top level button. And again, and then you would click the submit. And then you can enter comments again if needed, and then submit and done. And then you'll notice that in the first view for all of the subordinate organizations, the status has been changed from awaiting action to submitted. And again, all of this has to proceed up through all levels of management before being finalized. Okay, so that is how you view both direct and indirect employees. Now we're going to go on to what you can do after you submit this, because you no longer have access to that. So how can you see what was submitted? So you're going to go to the search box and type SSM compensation review, and you're looking for this SSM compensation review calculations employee details. And again, this is outlined in the job aid, so you don't need to remember that.
That's a mouthful.
Yes. Just find it in the job aid. So find that. And then in this first box, you'll type 2021 for the current year. And then you'll select the compensation review 2021 SSM pay for performance annual increase.
So will they have other options in that box? Is that why that's grayed out?
Yes, there are other options in that
So
box.
it's really important that they choose the 2021 SSM pay for performance annual increase, right? Because not everybody's on the same
Right.
thing. Okay.
Right, because we have another group that is doing just straight increases without the pay for performance piece.
Okay.
So that will also be an option in there.
Okay, super, thanks.
And then in your organization, in the organizations, just type in your name and it'll pull up your organization. And you can click on, if you have more than one, you can click on however many you want to include. If you want to include subordinate organizations, you click on the checkbox there for include subordinate organizations. And then click OK. And the report will appear. And there's much more data to the right of this report. Okay. So
this report, like, so if somebody, like in this instance, if I'm first level and my second level decides to change something after I've already submitted to them, this is where I can see that, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we're moving on to batch printing the annual increases. So again, on May 10th, managers will receive another Workday inbox task to print the personalized employee statements and begin the conversations. So to batch print statements, you search for view compensation review statements. And then in the organizations field, type your name. And then place a checkbox next to any of the organizations you want to include in the batch print job. So you can select more than one. And then you'll want to leave the include subordinate organizations blank, unchecked, unless you do want to batch print statements for all organizations in your hierarchy. However, it is important to note that there is a limit of 250 that can be generated to print at one time. And then once you have that information, you'll click proceed and then batch print and then refresh. And then the print status column, percent complete, will display as completed. And then you can click on the PDF up in the top right to view to export the statements. Download those. Click that. The statement will appear, and then you can click the print icon in the upper right corner to batch print all of those. You will receive in the printouts 1 page per employee, and statements for additional jobs will print on a separate page. So an employee with multiple jobs will have multiple pages of reports, and the employee's primary manager will receive the statements for the primary job and any additional jobs.
Good to know. And again, that's not we can't do anything until May 10th, right? So there's no way for us to print anything. And if we're going to look for that inbox task in our Workday inbox that says we can go ahead and do it, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. The only thing that you could print is if you go back to where you can review what has been submitted in the compensation review calculations employee details report. You can export that to Excel and view it in Excel, and you could print it there if you needed to.
Gotcha. Okay. So same thing again, right? Be very careful to choose the 2021 SSM pay for performance annual increase event. Yep.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Organization. In this case, if you're exporting it, you may want to include subordinate organizations so you have them all together. Click OK, and then the report will generate. And then you can click the Excel icon up in the top and export it to Excel. All right.
Awesome. Now that concludes our demo, right?
That does.
Okay, so we're going to get to your questions and answers now. So let's see. I'm going to just go through and start at the top. We have a question from Kristen Templin. A question overall in process. I am at a merit-based increase ministry, and I have a team member that has chosen another role in my ministry that is effective next week. Which leader, myself or her leader as of April 12th, will designate the amount for her raise?
In that case, I believe it's the current leader.
That is correct, Amy. This is Reba. The leader that had responsibility for the employee and their performance for the prior year should weigh in on what the performance should be and the increase.
Okay. Good, thanks. Okay, next question. Will employees be able to see the increases in Workday on May 9th when it becomes effective?
No. Per standard practice with payroll, employees would be able to see, if they go in and look, their increase showing in Workday 2 days prior to the pay date. So that would be the 26th of May, which is why we're asking that individual conversations with employees to advise them of the increase occurs prior to May 26th.
Got it. Okay, thanks. And then we have a question from Gina Voights. She wants to know, what does the quiet period mean?
We are calling it for a quiet period in the pay period in which the annual increases become effective. What that means is we're asking for, if it's possible, to pause on any kind of increases, promotions, transfers during that 2-week period to make sure that the increase processing that occurs in Workday that will flow on May the 7th goes through as intended without any conflicting events also being present in Workday.
Okay, we've got some questions around the budget. So it's Hope Valero asks, total budget is 2.5%. For example, each employee could get 2.5% increase should their performance warrant it, or you can split that up accordingly among employees. Is that what you're saying?
Do you want to take this one, Amy?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Yes, the total budget is 2.5% across the board. We cannot go above that. However, if their performance warrants and you want to give someone, let's say 2.75, that action in and of itself will put you over budget. So you would need to give someone else 2.25 in order to reconcile that final budget number.
Okay, and I think that just answered the next question as well. So just saying it a different way, are you not able to increase the 2.5% for employees who, who meet? It looks like you have some wiggle room in the other categories. The majority of my people met, but I would have liked to maybe increase some of the absolute highest performers and lower someone else just a bit.
Yes and no.
Okay.
And there've been some questions on this that are coming up. There is a job aid that will be available online that leaders can link to once they get into the module. It will be included in the section that Amy went through on the help text. Within the pay for performance job aid, you will find the matrix for different levels of performance ratings that your team members have received. There is a range, a discretionary range that is hard-coded in Workday. And this particular question is talking about increases for meets expectations. The default entry is 2.5%. That also is the maximum that someone can allocate to someone who meets expectations. There is some wiggle room, but that is between 1.5% and 2.5%.
Okay.
And there are different levels of discretionary ranges that align with the different ratings that someone would receive per their performance review.
Okay, so Amy, could you share the matrix found in the job aid? We can still see your screen. So if you bring up the job aid, we'll be able to take a closer look at the matrix, and we can show, what it looks like and what they'll be able to see. While you're doing that, I'm going to go to the next question. For employees below the midpoint of the pay grade, is the percent based on the midpoint of their salary?
No. That was a process that had been implemented, I believe, for the last 2 years. All calculations this year are based upon the individual's current rate of pay. We are not moving forward with the increases or the calculations based off of midpoint.
Okay. And as you can see, we do have the merit matrix up on the screen now. Amy, I don't know if you can make that just a little bit bigger, but Reba, do you want to speak to it at all, or just?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
And this is the matrix that is behind the scenes governing functionality within Workday. Again, the aggregate increases within someone's department cannot exceed the 2.5% merit budget, but within those parameters, depending upon the rating that your employees received, you can see the center column there is what is pre-populated in Workday. So if someone does not meet, the increase potential is 0. Below expectations, it will be populated at 0.5%. And if you look off to the right, there's a discretionary ability for leaders to apply an increase between 0% and 1% for those who are below. Similarly, for those who meet expectations, as I just mentioned, it will be pre-populated with 2.5%. And then the discretionary range moves between 1.5% to 2.5%. Similarly, for exceeds expectations, you can see what's pre-populated, and the discretionary range for that, and as well as for far exceeds, the discretionary range that is pre-populated in Workday. For example, if you have an employee that far exceeds expectations and you want to give that individual a 6% increase, it will error and you will not be able to do that. There is a hard discretionary range pre-programmed behind the scenes in Workday to limit that increase between 3% and 4%.
Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Reba. So will the lump sum be paid out in a separate check? Do we know
No,
that?
nope, it will also be paid out on the May 28th paycheck,
Okay, super.
same paycheck.
Now, if you're in a role with more than one layer below you, do you have to wait until all of those layers are complete before you can rate your direct reports? I think we answered that, but if you want to go ahead and speak to it again, Amy, that'd be great.
They can work through their direct reports and have them ready to go, but they cannot submit them until everybody below has submitted. Yes.
So they have to, okay, so they can work through them, but they have to all be submitted before the VP or second level can submit all of them together.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, let's see. How is the budget calculated? 2.5% of the high and the range for someone at the top. How does that relate to the budget?
The overall budget is calculated as by our partners in finance as a component of the 2021 annual budget process. It's calculated based upon base pay rates and salaries that were in effect in the October-November timeframe of 2020 to derive that 2.5% budget.
Got it. Okay, thanks. So if employees started in January and therefore they have no evaluation from 2020, how would that percent be calculated?
In that instance, we are asking leaders to assess their performance as best as they are able.
Okay. Is there any possibility of changing the dates to move up the first, second, and third level managers, maybe 2 days between, if we only have between the 26th and the 28th of April to do all the approvals? That's not very much time.
In that, we are asking leaders to partner with their hierarchical leaders in their departments. And you can, within departments, if there is a vice president who wants to be sure that they have all of their approvals in so that they can dedicate some time and thought to getting their approvals in. If they want to stipulate, I need all of my approvals to roll up to me by the 25th of May or of April, they certainly can do that. The other thing to be mindful of is if there is anyone within the reporting hierarchy that may be going on vacation or may be out of the country, please take that into consideration so that leaders within their departments participating in pay for performance can make sure that they have their unique timing needs met in order to get the approvals in and flowed through to final by the 28th.
Okay. What about compa ratio? Is that a factor this year?
It is not. That is associated with the midpoint approach, and we are not implementing that approach this year.
Okay, very good. What about the statements? Can they be saved as individual PDFs? Amy, do you want to take that one?
I think they can.
Yeah, I think if you don't do a batch print, I think if you did an individual print, you could save them as individual PDFs.
And I would concur with that. I mean, we can absolutely confirm with our experts on the Workday side.
Yep.
However, if you pull the batch print and save that as a PDF. It will save you it typically would save you one large PDF with all of the files in there. The alternative would be to pull up the statements one at a time, and then you can save as a PDF.
Okay. So let's see. Thank you. We have a question. Previously, when someone was below the midpoint within pay range, that was calculated into the percent increase to give them a higher raise. Is that calculated into this year's increase, or is it based on a flat percentage of current pay?
Great question. It is the percentage of increase would be calculated based upon their current rate of pay. The model that is described in this question is the approach that was taken over the last 2 years, and we are not pursuing that approach this year.
Okay, thank you. So for teams working at home, is there a download option rather than print for letters so they can be emailed at the time of the scheduled meeting to review with the employees? So I believe that if you, again, don't do the batch printing, if you do them individually, and you can download the PDFs individually. Let's see, if a person accepted a promotion, like in the example given before of a person accepting a new role as of 4/12, wouldn't their increase be built in already? Why are they receiving a market increase?
The market increase in terms of pay for performance, or just flat those who are participating in the non-pay for performance with the 2.5%. Those are not included in a promotional increase.
Okay. Very good. Jason Stelzer asks, are we informing our talent team of the quiet period so that recruiters understand that transfers, promotions should not be occurring during the quiet period?
Absolutely. That communication was made previously within over a month ago.
Perfect. Now, is there a recommendation on how to handle a small team where no one was rated as below expectation? So, example, if you have 2 employees with meets and 1 employee with exceeds, is the expectation that we take from the 2.5 of the meets employees to increase the exceeds?
No. If you refer to the matrix that should be still appearing on your screen, if someone is rated with exceeds expectations, they will already be pre-populated with 2.875% increase.
Perfect. Thank you. Will employees be paid below the merit matrix range if the number of individuals exceeding expectations is greater than the number of employees meeting or not meeting?
No, that is not the case.
Okay, thank you. Since most staff, statistically speaking, are in the meets expectation category, we are unable to give more than 2.5%, correct? That seems like the category we would want more discretion.
Actually, given that the 2.5% is the core budget, that would actually reflect that would be a suitable increase for those who meet expectations.
Very good. Why does the meets expectation range max out at 2.5%? This is the only category where you can only go lower than the pre-populated number. In the other categories, the discretionary range includes a range that goes higher than the pre-populated percent.
Again, that is due to the fact that we have an increased budget. That is structured at 2.5%. By default, that would align to those who are meeting expectations. If you look at the exceeds expectations, that actually, the discretionary range actually begins at 2.5 and expands up to 3.25.
Okay. So if an employee exceeds expectations and I give him 3% discretionary increase, does it mean I have to tamp down the others who are meets to less than 2% to balance out?
By default, yes.
Okay. In order to give anyone who exceeded expectations more than 2.5%, you would have to lower someone else in meets to below 2.5%. Out of the same themed questions here.
It is. However, in the meets expectations, we need to be mindful of the parameters that are outlined in the discretionary increase range column. Those are hard coded into Workday.
Okay. Let's see. So will HR be sending information out to all employees, especially that the compa ratio is not considered this year?
HR has been made aware of this practice, and it is included in materials that have been shared prior to this webinar.
Yeah, and someone suggested that people services, also be aware and carry that message forward about how raises were calculated this year, since it's
Absolutely.
different than last year.
Absolutely. We will be providing a lot of helpful information to our people resources team.
Okay. Let's see, what else? Since what qualifies as far exceeds expectations, since only exceeds expectations was visible on the reviews? Does that make sense?
I'll take that question if you're okay with that.
Oh, that's Maureen Siders. Yes,
This
please
is
join us,
Maureen Siders. I'm the subject matter expert for performance for SSM. There were two different rating scales that were used in our performance evaluations. The individual items, you had a 3-point rating scale, but the overall rating, you had a 5-point rating scale, which is where that exceeds and far exceeds came in. And that's what the performance matrix is based on, is that 5-point rating scale.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Maureen, about anything that's we've talked about?
No, I think we're probably pretty on track for this group, because we had looked at the completion of performance evaluations right before the compensation process started, and most evaluations were complete. So I think everybody should have a score in their evaluations, so not too many people defaulting in.
Okay. So I think that takes care of most of our questions. And we have about 4 minutes left. Reba or Amy, is there anything else you want to add before we end our Lunch and Learn today?
Number one, I will say thank you very much to everyone. It looks like we've got almost 200 people on the call today, so that's marvelous. And I understand that there may be some additional questions regarding the impact of the 2.5% budget and how that manifests. And so if anyone has any further questions in that regard, I invite you to feel free to reach out to me personally, and we can take any further conversations individually, and happy to talk through that and make sure that we have all the clarity that we are able to attain for this process.
Okay, and it looks like Gloria chimed in and said that HR teams are starting communication with leaders this week regarding the midpoint compa ratio changes, and that they were just waiting on this call to get that conversation started. So more information from the HR team this week. I do see one more question that I don't think we answered. After the freeze period is over and an employee gets a promotion later on in the year, will the promotion be based on the new rate?
The promotion would be based upon whatever their pay rate is at the time of the promotion. That does call out one more nuance that did not come up, but I want to make sure that everyone is aware. We do have an exclusion for those who are on a final written warning as of May 9th. those individuals will not be eligible to receive an increase, nor will they be able to receive an increase should they come off of the final written warning until the 2022 increase cycle.
Okay.
That I understand is a change from prior practice.
And we've got 3 questions that are new. If we could just get them real quick. Now that we've seen the matrix, are we able to change our employees' overall rating?
No, the ratings are in, they are final.
Okay. Can we not share the 2.5% amount? I don't understand this question. Can we not share the 2.5% amount % base with our employees because we are telling our employees meets expectation is great. You're doing your job. I'm not sure I get that one.
I would absolutely celebrate that if someone is successfully doing their job, that's
Yeah.
a very good communication.
Okay, good. And it seems unfair that we're not able to go higher for staff that are in a lower hourly rate. We were told by our leadership that basically all staff meets expectations, and unless an employee goes above and beyond every day, they should only be in the meets range.
Okay, there are 2 streams involved in this question. The approach of managing to a compa ratio and leveraging increases off of midpoint is a unique approach to managing increases for an organization. For 2021, we are leveraging the 2.5% because we know that's our new normal. And we want to make sure that those who are new to their roles or perhaps lower in the range are able to achieve an increase. And we're also able to achieve that same increase for someone who is more experienced or more tenured employees at SSM as well. It's a different approach. And it's one that doesn't adversely impact any employees within SSM.
Okay, super. That concludes our Lunch and Learn. So thank you so much to Amy and Reba and Maureen and everyone who attended. We appreciate your time. And again, we have recorded the session. If you want to go back and review any of the answers to the questions or the materials, we will post it out in the Workday Help app under the Workday 101 for Managers video library. We'll also be sending out a satisfaction survey. We'd love to hear your feedback so that we know how we can improve future Lunch and Learn. So thank you, everyone. We hope you have a great rest of your day.